don't know where they are.
Rose? Rose! Rose, you know keys!
Welcome to Real Talks, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to my Anatomy of a Movie series. For everyone discovering for the channel for the first time, welcome. And if you're a returning viewer, welcome back. Now I'm going to do something a little different with this series. Normally, I would focus on the themes of a movie or sometimes even break down a specific act. What I'm going to attempt to do in 2026 is something much larger. I'm going to be doing a top 25 film scenes of all time. That's right, you heard me, all time. Now you're probably saying to yourself, wait, isn't there an official list for this? No, there isn't. This is my personal list. And that's what I'm going to be asking from you guys throughout this series, is if you think a certain scene belongs above another one, I want you to tell me why down in the comments. Before we begin, I gotta say, this was really hard. I was reordering it a lot, but I think the final version is solid. And I really hope you agree. Without any further ado, shall we begin? At number 25, I've chosen a couple of scenes from the 2017 Jordan Peele masterpiece, Get Out. The fact that I'm putting this at the very bottom of the list just goes to show you how strong it is. I told you, I did a lot of thinking. Anyways, if you want to check out my total breakdown of this film, go to my Perfect Movies series. I'll leave a link for you guys in the description. But for the time being, I'm going to focus on two specific moments. These two scenes are so powerful and work brilliantly together that separating them feels almost wrong. I'm talking about the auction scene and the Fruit Loop scene. Before we get into that though, I have a little setup to do. Get Out isn't just a horror film. It's a social thriller that exposes how racism often hides behind smiles, politeness, and liberal language. Peele himself has said the film started as a horror story, but became, quote, something more important as it took shape. A film meant to directly explore race and the eerie realities of racism in America. Not just scare audiences for fun, but making it into something more urgent. It's a brutal wake-up call about what race feels like in modern America. He went on to explain that horror is the perfect genre to talk about race because it makes feelings palpable, going on to say, quote, I wanted to point out the horrors we experience isn't monsters. It's the deep horror of casual, everyday racism. Now with the setup completed, let's dive right into it. The auction scene is one of the quietest and most frightening scenes in modern horror. There's no dramatic music, no frantic bidding, no frantic shouting, just a group of well-dressed white guests standing in a backyard silently raising bingo cards as a black man is sold. Chris isn't there. He doesn't even know what's happening, and that's the point. This party was never about welcoming him, it was about selling him. The fact that our main character isn't there makes it even more disturbing. But guess what? We, the audience, are. The director forces the audience to witness the transaction without intervention. The camera places us uncomfortably close to the buyers. We're not allowed distance or relief. The scene asks a quiet question. What does it mean to watch injustice and do nothing, remembering that the buyers are not villains or hooded figures? They're affluent, comfortable, and polite. They're the kind of people who would insist they're not racist, and yet they're literally bidding on the ownership of Chris's body. It presents racism not as hatred, but as transactional, efficient, normalized, and orderly. That concept is embedded in this scene. No one hesitates, objects, or even looks uncomfortable. They're just participating. Evil doesn't announce itself, blending in. Political theorist Hannah Arendt coined the phrase the vanity of evil, writing about it extensively in her 1963 book, Eichmann in Jerusalem. It's the idea that extraordinary harm is often committed not by monsters, but by ordinary people simply doing what feels normal to them. So what's the takeaway here? Evil exists in many forms. No words have to be spoken in order to show an intent. Hey everyone, real quick, before we continue, I want to talk to you about something special I've set up for the channel, and that's YouTube memberships. So you may be asking yourself, why are these important? Well, for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, my dream is to do this full time, so I can bring you guys the very best in movie rhetoric, whether it's retrospectives, the monthly perfect movie, or the anatomy of a movie breakdowns. Secondly, some of these videos don't get monetized because I'm adding certain clips or audio in there, but that's because I want to bring you guys the very best. So if you can help me out, I can do this on a regular basis. Now, let's get down to brass tacks, shall we? How much are they? Well, the first month is completely free. That's right. I said completely free. Nothing. That's because I want you to look at the content and see if this is something you want to support. After that, they start at $2.99 a month. This tier is called Moviegoer. That's literally less than a cup of coffee at Starbucks. One latte versus a whole month of original shows and deeper conversations about movies. The next tier is called Producer, and that's $6.99 a month. Think of it like buying a couple of gallons of gas. Instead of one short drive, you're refueling an entire month of breakdowns, movie discussions, and recommendations. And finally, guys, the highest tier I have is only $9.99 a month, and that's called Director. That's cheaper than any streaming service out there today. And unlike those services, you're not just scrolling endlessly to find something to watch. There is one final reason I'd like you guys to support me. Because movies are my passion. And if they're done right, they can be effective. They'll have great storytelling, exuberant emotion, enhance the craft, and revolutionize the culture. And this channel exists because I genuinely love talking about them with people who feel the same way. So if you like what you see here, I want you to consider joining the community so we can make this grow. You have nothing to lose. So take advantage of that first free month. Support the movies, but more importantly, support the passion, and I'll be bringing you the very best content I can. Welcome back. Let's move on to the other scene now. This one is equally as disturbing and frightening. I would argue this one is even more devastating because there are no words spoken. I'm talking about the Fruit Loop scene in the third act. If the auction scene exposes the system, the Fruit Loop scene exposes the individual. After Chris escapes, we see Rose sitting in her bedroom alone. She's eating dry Fruit Loops, drinking milk separately, and scrolling through her phone and computer searching for her next victim. There are so many different layers to this. Let's go through each one of them one by one. The first one, the cereal itself. First and foremost, it represents mixing and separating, and this is a choice for Rose. The Fruit Loops detail and food imagery more broadly takes on a different but complementary meaning, which is tied to performance, deception, and consumption rather than repression. Rose moves more freely through the house because she is the system, projecting intentional dominance and control. Number 2, the camera movement. In this scene, the camera is remarkably calm. No dramatic push-ins, no frantic handheld shots, no aggressive cuts. Instead, what you see is that the camera glides and just observes. That's intentional. He frames Rose the way the film has framed white characters throughout the film, as comfortable, centered, and in control of her space. The camera does not accuse her. It does not dramatize her, just simply watches her actions. This mirrors how society often treats people like Rose, unchallenged, unquestioned, and presumed innocent. The slow movement also creates dread because it mimics realization. The horror isn't what the camera shows, it's how patiently it's waiting for us to catch up. Number 3, the music. This song is no accident. I've Had the Time of My Life is playing for a reason. Now, when most people hear this song, they famously associate it with the movie Dirty Dancing, and they would be right. However, Rose has weaponized romance, using it for her charm, emotional openness, and sexual intimacy to create the illusion of a meaningful connection, the exact emotional space it represents. By pairing the song with the reveal of her crimes, Peele retroactively poisons every romantic moment we've seen before. What feels like love was always tragedy. In other words, when Rose listens to this song, it isn't ironic, it's honest. For her, this has been the time of her life. Number 4, the photographs. These are meant to be trophies, not memories. The reveal of these photographs on the wall is devastating because how they're framed. They aren't hidden, locked away, or treated like secrets. They're on display, hanging neatly, organized, and visible. This isn't a moment of shame, but pride for her. Also, they represent evidence of repetition, proof of her success, and records of her conquests. Every image representing a complete cycle: seduction, betrayal, consumption, and disposal. Crucially, in almost every photo, she is smiling. This detail matters because it means that the men trusted and believed her thinking they were happy. It reframes every romantic moment we, the audience, have seen in the film with Chris. It establishes part of a pattern. And finally, number 5, visual. The white turtleneck Rose is wearing in this shot holds significance because white clothing in film is almost always coded as purity, safety, or harmlessness. The attire leans directly into that visual language, that she looks clean, non-threatening, and almost angelic. This was done at the exact moment that the film fully reveals who she is, because it mirrors how she's been perceived the entire time by Chris and by the audience. It reinforces the lie, even as the truth is exposed. Next time on Real Talks.
I'm offering you a psychological profile of Buffalo Bill based on the case evidence. I'll help you catch him, Clarice.
A line that isn't a promise. It's a power play. A psychological chess match between predator and prey, framed through silence, stares, and control. We're breaking down The Silence of the Lambs, how Jonathan Demme used camera placement, proximity, and performance to trap us inside of Clarice Starling's fear.
You don't spook easily.
If you like this video, guys, don't forget to smash that like and subscribe button. And go back and check out the other series on here, including the other Anatomy of a Movie videos and the Perfect Movie series. And I will see you next time.